Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The 27th prominent devotee of Nityananda Prabhu was Acharya Vaishnavananda, a great personality in devotional service. He was formerly known as Raghunath Puri. Purport. In the Guru Ganadesha Dipika, verse 97, it is said that Raghunath Puri was previously very powerful in the 8 mystic successes. He was an incarnation of one of the successes. And that's the purport. Short but sweet. Om Jnana Timidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham kodoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. So, this is text 42. We'll just read the translation again. The 27th prominent devotee of Nityananda Prabhu was Acharya Vaishnavananda, a great personality in devotional service. He was formerly known as Raghunath Puri. So I just wanted to start by putting this verse into context for those of you who haven't been here for the last, I don't know how long you've been doing this chapter, 42, the last maybe 40 weeks or something like that. And even if you have been here, then it's always nice to put things in context. So, Krishna, is described in the Shastra that Krishna has 64 transcendental qualities. They're listed in the Nectar of Devotion and also in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya also. And it's described that of those 64 transcendental qualities, the living entity, in its perfect state, in its pure state, has 50 and can possess 50 of those different transcendental qualities in minute quantity, only fragmentally. And then Lord Vishnu or Lord Narayan, he has 60 transcendental qualities. But Lord Krishna, he has 64 transcendental qualities. He has 4 special qualities which set him aside from everyone else in creation. One name for Krishna is Asam Udva, which means that no one is equal to and no one is above him. So Krishna's 4 special transcendental qualities. Does anyone know? Can anyone name one of Krishna's 4 special transcendental qualities? Let's see who's been studying. Sharanga Thakur, Prabhu. Yeah, he's expert in transcendental flute playing. Or as Vijay Prabhu says, he likes to jam on the flute. Sometimes when he's selling books to people, he says, hey, you've heard of Krishna. He's got that really cool Californian accent, right? Hey, California, where you from? And he says, hey, you've heard of Krishna, right? And they say, yeah. He says, he likes to jam on the flute. He's expert in transcendental flute playing. So anyone know any more of Krishna's transcendental qualities? We've got 3 more. His transcendental form, yeah, he possesses unparalleled personal beauty. It's worded slightly differently in different translations. But in the one we used to read, in Krunabhavan, we used to read every Thursday, at Doxtra, remember, we used to read the transcendental qualities of Radha and Krishna every Thursday. So I think it was from the the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, it said that he possesses unparalleled personal beauty. Krishna is so beautiful. Sometimes when people meet us on the street, we give them a Krishna book. They say, who's that woman on the front? And they mean Krishna. Krishna is so beautiful. So he's expert in transcendental flute playing. He possesses unparalleled personal beauty. Anyone know any more? Mataji? He's always surrounded by loving devotees. And this is the one that's particularly relevant. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki. Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki. Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai ki. Just like the deities here, they're always surrounded by their loving devotees. The deities are very beautiful, but in one sense, the deities without their devotees are not as beautiful. They're even more beautiful when they're always being worshipped by their devotees. So yeah, Krishna is always surrounded by loving devotees. And the last one, who knows the last one? Good. Everyone's been studying very nicely here at Bhaktivedanta Manor. Yeah, he can manifest wonderful pastimes. So anyway, this particular one, that he's always surrounded by loving devotees, is appropriate for this verse. We're going to get onto that. But the point is that Krishna is never on his own. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that when we talk about a king, we don't have a king in this country, we have the Queen. She lives just down the road in Buckingham Palace. So when you talk about the king, you mean naturally the king and his entourage. So if you talk about the king, then naturally the Queen is there, the children are there, all the king's horses and all the king's men, the soldiers, the army, the court jester, the cooks, everyone, the whole palace is there. So similarly, when we talk about Krishna, we don't generally see Krishna on his own. We do sometimes see pictures of Krishna on his own. But when we talk about Krishna, we mean everyone. We mean Srimati Radharani, we mean all the cowherd men, all the cowherd women, all the cows. You can't have Krishna without the cows. And then all the residents of Vrindavan. In fact, in Vrindavan, it's described that every single living entity is fully conscious. Even the trees are completely conscious, the plants, the bees, everyone. So Krishna means Krishna and his devotees. He's always surrounded by loving devotees. And even just in the mundane sense, if you think of an important person in this material world, like, for instance, the Queen. We're here in England, we have the Queen. So if the Queen came in right now, we'd say, oh, Your Majesty, please have a seat. We're going to be serving prasadam about 9 o'clock, if you can just hang on there. But she'd be surrounded by so many people, because this quality of fame is very attractive. Right? If you meet someone famous, they've got a certain Shakti. And certainly people become attracted by that. They gather round. I remember one time in Glasgow, I was doing book distribution many years ago, and I met one famous personality called Rick Mail. Now, some of you, actually, he just left his body not so long ago. But if some of you joined a long time ago, before the 80s or like the early 80s, you may not know Rick Mail. If you joined, I don't know, if you're more of a younger devotee, then you also may not know Rick Mail. But for those of you who are around my age, I won't say how old that is, but he was a famous comedian, and he did many different television programs. And I met him. He was there in Glasgow. And I would stop people by saying, "Hey, you," with a big smiling face. So I said, "Hey, you." And then I realized it was Rick Mail. So I said, "Hey, Rick." And he was just like in character. Anyway, this is from my Bhagavatam class. We don't want to get too diverted. But he was just like in character as he was on TV. And I won't go into a whole thing. But anyway, and he was just like, and I said, "Rick, And at that time, we were distributing, along with books, we were selling these monk rock CDs. It was rock music with, Hare Krishna mantra. You've heard of punk rock? Well, this is monk rock. So I said, okay, Rick, we're just, we're monks, but we've got a band, and, it's the monks getting down. We're just passing these out. And he said, and I said, it'll bring out, and I said, it'll purify the consciousness. And he said, well, that's no good for my writing. He said, because I need, a dirty mind to be able to do my writing. He said, I said, don't worry, Rick. I said, this will bring out all of the dirt from the heart, and it'll be right there in your mind. And he was like, oh. And then he said, well, anyway, it was a whole thing, And then in the end, he gave me all his money. It wasn't that much, actually. He had about £8 or £9, and he gave me that. Took a book and a CD. And I said, we always ask everyone, Rick, to give a big smile and say, Gauranga. So he said, Gaur, and then he said something in between, something which we shouldn't recite as Hare Krishnas. Gaur, something, Ranga. It was favorable, Gaur, Ranga. You can use your imagination. And then while I was speaking to Rick Mayall, I wasn't like starstruck at all. Like sometimes if you meet someone famous, you become a bit like nervous, because they've got some Shakti. But Krishna enabled me to not become too starstruck. But then, and then I could sell him the CD and the book, and he went away, he chanted the holy name. But then I went over to my Sankirtan partner, Caitanya Prabhu, and I said, Prabhu, I just sold a book and a CD to Rick Mayall. And he was like, who? Because he'd joined in like 1984 or something like that, and he didn't know who Rick Mayall was. But I was like, oh, whoa, I was like, oh, I met Rick Mayall. And just recently, when he left his body, I was thinking, actually, he had the chance to read one of Srila Prabhupada's books and listen to some monk rock and chant the holy names. So wherever he's gone, hopefully he's gone to a better destination. From 1% of devotional service comes 2%. So what to speak of Krishna? This is just one mundane comedian in the material world. But still, he has some Shakti. And, when famous people are there, people like to surround them. So what to speak of Krishna? Asam Urdhva, no one is equal to him. No one is beyond him. He's the most famous, the most important person in the entire creation. So he's certainly always surrounded by loving devotees. Everyone wants to be with Krishna. You see that nice picture in the temple room in Krunabhavan. We have this nice picture that a doctor painted of the cowherd boys running to touch Krishna and Balaram. They're all running after him. Everyone wants to be the first person to touch Krishna because Krishna's so attractive. Everyone wants to be with him. And during Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas. Actually, we had the fortune to just go and visit this place, Vidyanagar, in Mayapur, just before the Christmas marathon. So he'd taken sannyas, and then Mother Sachi had said, okay, you can go to Jagannath Puri. But Lord Chaitanya had a deep desire in his heart to go and visit Vrindavan. Somehow or another, he hadn't made it. Advaita Acharya had tricked him. He'd gone, and he'd said, yeah, this way is Vrindavan, come this way. And then he said, here is the river. He said, yes, this is the river Yamuna. But it wasn't. It was the river Ganges. And then he took him to Mother Sachi's house. Some transcendental trickery. Because the devotees wanted to see him one last time. But then, anyway, eventually, Lord Chaitanya was in Jagannath Puri and he wanted to go to Vrindavan. But first, he came back to Navadvip. And he came to a place called Vidyanagar, where one personality was living, the brother of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, called Vidya Vachaspati. And Lord Chaitanya, he came on his own. And he, knocked on the door. And Vidya Vachaspati, he, let him in. And Lord Chaitanya said, now listen, he said, I'm just here for a few days. I want you just keep it under your hat. Don't let anyone know that I'm here, just mum's the word, Keep it to yourself. And then Vidya Vachaspati, he said, my Lord, he says, trying to conceal that you're here is like trying to hide the sun in the middle of the day. Now, in the middle of the day here, we don't really see the sun. Sometimes you don't even know if the sun's up. But in Navadvip, in the middle of the day, when the sun's out, you cannot hide it. So how can you hide the fact that the Supreme Lord is there in your house? Just like when Devaki, Mother Devaki, she had Krishna within her womb. And it's described that she became so effulgent that actually they could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was already within her womb. How can you hide the Supreme Lord? So word got around, Navadweep, Nimai is back. He's come back to Navadweep. So everyone wanted to come and see him. So it's described that they came first in their hundreds, then in their thousands, then in their 10,000s, then in their hundreds of thousands, and then in their millions. I remember I heard the pastime recited by Radhanath Swami, and when he was telling the... And I'm thinking, oh my... So then it's described that they came across on the boats, 10 people, then 100 people. And we went on one of those boats, and you can fit at the most about, 50 or 60 people. But it's described that 1,000 got on, then 10,000 people got on the boat, then 100,000 people got on the boat, and then the boat sank. So then they just carried and they walked across the Ganges. And then they all came and they were camping out. They were there in the trees, and still those trees are there. And it's described that in one tree there was 10,000 people. And then another tree there was 10,000 people. It was like a stakeout. When the police, there's like some criminals in the house and they're waiting for them to come out. So it was a transcendental stakeout. They were waiting for Lord Caitanya to arrive, and then so there was there was millions of devotees in these trees, and none of the branches broke. Now you might think, well, that sounds a bit far-fetched. But actually it's described by the acharyas that you have to apply this principle of what is achintya, inconceivability. You have to apply that to everything in relationship to Krishna. Because in one sense, everything's far-fetched, isn't it? The supreme... Who is God? Well, he's a cowherd boy, he plays the flute, and he just herds the cows all day. How does this universe come into being? You could go into like a physics, lecture or something. You say, actually, no, this is how the universe is created. God expands himself from a cowherd boy into a huge form, and he's just residing in an ocean. And then every time he breathes out, millions of universes expand from the pores in his body. And then from that God, he expands into a... It's all very far-fetched, isn't it? In one sense, you either have to... Prabhupada said one time, he said, either we throw out the newspaper, because they'd said, Prabhupada, in the newspaper it says that man has gone to the moon. And Prabhupada says, well, in the Shastra it says that the moon is a heavenly planet, and you cannot go there in some... Sputnik. He said, either we throw out the Caitanya Charitamrita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, or we throw out the newspaper. So then Srila Prabhupada, he picked up the newspaper and he threw it behind him. So we have to have a little bit of faith. But the more we put our faith in the words of the Shastra, the more we put our faith in the holy name and the association of devotees and the process of devotional service, the more and more Krishna reveals himself to us. Ye yata mam prapajante, tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Krishna reveals himself to us and we realize, no, this is a fact. So there we are, millions of people are in the trees. And they came out, Lord Chaitanya came out, and they were all in awe. Anyway, the point we're making, we don't want to get too distracted, is that Krishna is always surrounded by his loving devotees. Everyone wants to be with Krishna. So when Krishna appears in this material world, so do his devotees. Birth after birth after birth, every time Krishna appears. Just like Krishna says to Arjuna, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. And then why do the devotees come? Like we're saying in the material world, people like to be with someone who's famous. Why? Because it's for your own sense gratification. You can go off and tell your friend, hey, I just met Brad Pitt, or I just saw the Queen, or I just sold a book to Rick Mail. It's like for our own sense gratification. But the devotees, they don't come with Krishna for sense. They come to serve him. Na danam, na janam, na sundarim, kavatamba, jagadishikami, mama jamani, jamanishri, bhavatad bhaktaro tikatui. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. All I want is your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. So the pure devotees, they do come birth after birth, and they serve him again and again, even if it means that they have to take birth as a demon. Jayam Vijay, the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, they were cursed by the 4 Kumaras, and they had to come to the material world. And then they said, well, you can have 7 births as devotees, or you can have 3 births as demons. And they had a little Easter ghosty. 7 births. That means we're going to have to stay away from our service in Vaikuntha for even longer. No, let's take 3 births as demons. So they appeared as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, sorry. And then, who else was there? Dantavakra and Shishupal, and Kumbhakarna and Ravan. Is that right? And then they enjoyed it so much, they came back again as GI and Vijay. They didn't even have to, but they just thought, well, this is great. So we'll come back as Jai and Vijay, because they enjoy serving the Lord in whatever capacity, whether they go to heaven, whether they go to hell. There's that verse in the Bhagavatam, whether I'm serving Krishna in heaven, whether I'm serving him in hell. It doesn't matter as long as I'm serving Krishna. So they appear birth after birth after birth in every single incarnation. So too in Gaura Lila. So in this verse and this translation, Prabhupada refers to the Gaura Ganadesha Dipika, which describes which personalities in Gaura Lila, who they were in Krishna's pastimes also. It's like a transcendental who's who list. Like they have this thing, a who's who list. Like a who's who of footballers. It means like all the best footballers. Or a who's who of, rich and famous people. Like they have the who's who list of the most wealthiest people. Well, this is the real who's who list. Who they were in Krishna's pastimes, who they were in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So, for instance, Srivas Pandit, in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, he was, anyone know? He was Narad Muni. And then you have Keshava Bharati. Does anyone know who he was in Krishna's pastimes? Because he's the teacher, right? He gave Lord Chaitanya sannyas. So who is Krishna's teachers Krishna's teacher in his pastimes? Sandipani Muni, yeah. So Keshava Bharati, so they all have that, like he was a teacher, and again he became a teacher. And then you had Kashinath, Lokanath, Srinath, and Ramanath. They were the 4 Kumaras. So here it's described that Acharya Vaishnavananda, formerly known as Raghunath Puri, he was an incarnation of one of the 8 yoga successes, or the 8 mystic siddhis that one achieves when one performs. So everyone wants to come and be with Krishna and serve him. So the personification of each of the yogic successes, each one of them, all 8 of them, they all came. We'll read out who they are in a minute. And it's described that this Acharya Vaishnavananda, or Raghunath Puri, he was the 27th branch of Nityananda Prabhu. So it's described, in a minute we'll describe what the Chaitanya tree is, or what the desire tree of devotional service is, but it's described that there's the Chaitanya tree, and then there's 2 main branches. There's the Nityananda branch, and there's the Advaita Acharya branch. These are the 2 main branches of the Chaitanya tree. So in chapter 9 of the Adi Lila, Krishnadas Kaviraj, he gives this example. It's a figurative example to explain the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So it's described that Lord Chaitanya, he was thinking to himself one day, my name is Vishvambar. We have our Vishvambar Prabhu. So Vishvambar means the maintainer of the universe. We have our maintainer of Sankirtan, book distribution in the UK. So he thought, my name is Vishvambar, I'm the maintainer of the universe. But he thought, my name will be actualized only when I fill the entire universe with love of God. Because that's the thing that's really maintaining everyone. Not just, we get our, we work and we get paid so we can, actually the real thing is love of God. That's actually what's keeping us all going, and it's there dormant within our hearts. So Krishna consciousness means reviving that dormant love of Godhead and also giving it to everyone else. So he said, therefore I have to fill the entire universe with love of God. Therefore, in order to do that, he brought this tree. It's called the desire tree of devotional service to the material world in order to intoxicate the entire universe with love of God, which are the fruits of the tree. The fruits of the tree are the manifestations of love of God. So it's described that Lord Chaitanya, he is the tree himself. He's also the gardener of the tree. Just like here at Bhaktivedanta Manor, you have beautiful gardens, and you have Dwarka Puri Prabhu. He's one of the main gardeners, right? Sharanga Thakur, he's the gardener at Krunabhavan, one of the gardeners. Now, anyone who knows anything about gardening, which I don't know much about, but you can't get a nice garden just by letting it do its own thing. That's called a euphemism for letting your garden do its own thing. As you say, yeah, it's a nature reserve. It's a nature reserve. You let the grass all grow and the weeds are everywhere and there's like all kinds of things living. Yeah, it's a nature reserve. But what it means is you couldn't be bothered to do your garden, so you get all the weeds growing. But if you want something to grow nicely, you need a good gardener. So Lord Caitanya, he's the tree himself, and he's the gardener. And he picks the fruits, and he's the bestower of the fruits. He's also distributing them. So it's described that the seed was first sown in Navadvip, where Lord Caitanya appeared. It was taken to Jagannath Puri, and then eventually to Vrindavan. But it's described that the seed actually fructified. It started to produce some fruit, or the creeper, in Madhavendra Puri. And then Madhavendra Puri, he passed it on to Ishwara Puri, and then Ishwara Puri, the spiritual master of Lord Caitanya, then he passed it on to Lord Caitanya. Of course, it's ultimately coming from Lord Caitanya anyway. So it's described that the main trunk of the tree is Lord Caitanya, and then the two main branches are Advaita and Nityananda, and from those main branches come all of the other branches and twigs. And it's described that also ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport, that ISKCON is one of the branches of the Chaitanya tree. Srila Prabhupada would often speak about ISKCON. He would say this ISKCON, or this Hare Krishna movement, it is authorized. You know, sometimes people see us singing and dancing in the streets. And even during Lord Chaitanya's time, and they think, oh, these people are just sentimental. Or nowadays, people don't think we're sentimental. They think these people are nuts or crazy. One time we were going out on a Harinam in Glasgow. And, as we were going along, this one kind of homeless guy, kind of a tramp on the streets, they call him Jakies in Glasgow, he was going through the bin. You know, sometimes you see homeless people going through the bin, and he was pulling things out and throwing it. He was looking for something to eat or something. And then he turned at us, and he went like this. He looked at us and indicated, he was saying, you guys are crazy. Like this, pulling a scowl at us. And here's this guy, he's like pulling things out of the bin. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. So Srila Prabhupada was one time asked by Burijam Prabhu. He said, Srila Prabhupada, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is night for the introspective sage is the time of awakening for the conditioned souls. But nighttime for the conditioned souls is the time of awakening for the introspective sage. He said, Srila Prabhupada, what does this verse mean? And Srila Prabhupada explained it very nicely. He said, actually, what it means is that when we see the conditioned souls, we think they're crazy. And he said, and when the conditioned souls, the other way around. He said, when the conditioned souls, they see us, they think we're crazy. He said, but when we see them, we think they're crazy. And he said, and actually, they are crazy. So it's a fact. How do we get onto that? Oh, yeah. But the point was, when people see us singing and dancing in the streets, they don't know that actually this is an authorized movement based on, the Shastras. It's the oldest known tradition in the world. Well, it's eternal, actually. Krishna consciousness is eternal. One woman was challenging me in the temple the other day. We were giving a class on New Year's Eve. And she said, your Hare Krishna movement, when did it start? I said, it is eternal. I said, historically, it is 5,000 years old. But actually, Krishna consciousness is about the relationship between the soul, which is eternal, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, of all the eternals, there is one eternal, Krishna, so he's eternal, we're eternal, and the relationship between the condition or the devotees and Krishna is eternal. So therefore this Krishna consciousness movement is eternal. So Srila Prabhupada said, it is authorized, it is a branch of the Chaitanya tree. And it's described that when Lord Caitanya, he sees people eating the fruit of this love of Godhead, he smiles, he becomes very happy. And it's described that Lord Caitanya, he's in great anxiety seeing the suffering of the fallen conditioned souls. A Vaishnava is paradukha dukhi. He's unhappy to see the suffering of others. Therefore, yesterday we had our National Book Distribution Marathon Festival, and we distributed as a yatra 185,000 books. So therefore, Lord Caitanya, he's smiling on the altar. He's happy to see the fruits of love of Godhead being distributed. But he says, I'm the only gardener. How many fruits can I pick? How many fruits can I distribute? I cannot do it all on my own. He said, therefore, I order everyone to accept this Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it everywhere. Yari Deka, Tara Kaha, Krishna Upadesh, Amara Agyaya, Guru Hana, Tara Adesh. He says, whoever you meet, just instruct him to follow the teachings of Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a guru and try to liberate the entire land. So this is Lord Chaitanya's order. Yesterday, Shivaram Swami Maharaj, he was saying in the class that every devotee is a Sankirtan devotee. If you're in this ISKCON movement, everyone is a Sankirtan devotee. He said if you're doing everything properly, if your book distribution is Sankirtan, he said dressing the deities, because the idea is Sankirtan is a mood. What is the mood of a Sankirtan devotee? It means we're trying to engage everyone in Krishna's service. Every single one of us. So if we're in the right mood of Sankirtan, when we're dressing the deities, we're trying to dress the deities so beautifully that when people come, they're attracted to Krishna. Or when we're cooking, we may be cooking and thinking, I'm cooking this for the devotees who are going out on Sankirtan. Or when people are, and Maharaj said, if we're awake, japa is also Sankirtan. So this is the order of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everyone must become a guru and teach people about Krishna consciousness. Give them the holy name, give them prasadam, give them books. And of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he could have liberated the entire universe, but it's described that he left the credit for us. Srila Prabhupada described of his own spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He said he could have liberated the entire universe, but he is very merciful that he's left the credit for us. So like this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's left the credit for us, who says, liberate everyone. I want everyone to pick these fruits and distribute them everywhere. And actually, this is the process of Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, like right now, we're having a class, and some of you, and in class, we get information, and sometimes it's too much information. Sometimes, like some of you are thinking now, okay, is the class going to finish soon? He's been going on for a while. I'm a bit tired. I'm looking forward to breakfast. This is too much information. Well, I'm sorry. I've got a bit more to go yet. We'll try and keep it condensed, which is hard for someone like me. But we'll try. Anyway, so you get information, but the result of information in Krishna consciousness is that there should be transformation. If there's no transformation, what is the point of the information? Sometimes we learn so much and we learn so many slokas. I've learned a new sloka this week. But are we applying the sloka? In my case, no. But if we're actually applying the information that we're hearing, then there should be transformation. The heart should change. We should start developing good qualities, becoming free from material desires, becoming more attracted to serving Krishna, serving the devotees. This is the result, transformation. And then Devamrita Maharaj, he says there should be transformation and distribution. Because if transformation is actually taking place, naturally, if you're getting so much satisfaction from Krishna consciousness, the heart softens and we see other people are suffering. We become paradukkha dukhi. And we see that actually these people cannot be happy without Krishna consciousness. So naturally, we want to distribute it. As Vaisheshika Prabhu says, distribute the overflow. In other words, in Krishna consciousness, when we're so enthusiastic, I had the fortune to be in Vrindavan in Kartik this year. And I met His Grace Sankishan Das Adhikari Prabhu. For the first time I'd ever met him. And my God, that devotee is enthusiastic. And he told us how he became so enthusiastic. He said one time he got a letter from Srila Prabhupada. He wrote to Srila Prabhupada, asking some questions. And Srila Prabhupada wrote to him and he said, actually, if you are always enthusiastic in your Krishna consciousness, Krishna will inspire you from within. Tesham nitya bhyuktanam yoga. What is that? What is that verse? Tesham nitya bhyuktanam yogakshemam vaham. No, it's another verse, isn't it? Yeah, yogakshemam vahamyaham. Yeah. Krishna, he enlightens us from within. So then, Sankishan Das Adhikari Prabhu, he said, and that's why I'm always so enthusiastic. And if anyone's met him, then he's just so enthusiastic. I was so inspired just meeting him. He's just bubbling over with enthusiasm. It's just like he's got too much enthusiasm. Here, have some of my enthusiasm. And you just want to give it to everyone. So this is called distributing the overflow. We're so satisfied in our Krishna consciousness. Here, have some. So information, then transformation, and then it's Sunday morning, everyone's asleep, and then distribution, yes. Should be still fresh in our mind after the Prabhupada book marathon. Information, transformation, and distribution. So this particular verse we're reading from is describing the Nityananda branch. And Kaviraj Goswami, he says at the start of this chapter that actually the branches and the sub-branches, they are innumerable and unlimited. But for my own personal purification, I shall try to enumerate only those which are most prominent among them. So when Nandan Prabhu texted me this verse on New Year's Day, I was thinking, my God, it's like one line purport. And I'm thinking, how on earth am I going to say anything about that? And he says, don't worry, Prabhu, I'm sure you'll be able to churn something from it. And I was thinking, my God, he's encouraging. A Vaishnava is always very encouraging. So he says, yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to churn something from it. I think, my God, how am I going to say anything from this? I'm thinking, I've never even heard of Acharya Vaishnavananda. I don't know anything about him. But here the point is, actually, it's not we've never heard of them. They've never heard of us. Who are we? We think we're like, I'm Caitanya Vallabha Das, who are we? We're no one. But here is Acharya Vaishnavananda, or Raghunath Puri. He's there, eternalized in the pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The branches of Nityananda Prabhu are unlimited and innumerable, but Kaviraj Goswami is describing only those that are most prominent. He says, and just for my own purification, I will try to say who they are. So just for our own purification, just by reciting the name Acharya Vaishnavananda, we become purified. Who is he? He's one of the 8 yoga successes. So we've got the 8 yoga successes. One is anima. One can become smaller than the smallest. 2, lagima. One can become lighter than the lightest. 3, prapti. One can obtain anything one likes from the universe. You think, okay, I want this, and you can just extend, and you can just get it. Mahima becomes heavier than the heaviest, just like Krishna, when he was taken up in the air by Trinavata, the Trinavata demon. Then all of a sudden he became very heavy. And then Trinavata, he fell down, and he landed on the rock, and his eyes bulged, and he passed stool and urine. Have you noticed that whenever any of the demons die in the Krishna book, their eyes bulge, and they pass stool and urine? It's like quite X-rated stuff sometimes. So heavier than the heaviest. 5, Ishitva, means that one can create or annihilate at their own will. You can even create a planet. These mystic yogis, you can just say, right, I'm just going to create my own planet. Sometimes you're fed up with the weather here in London. My God, it's terrible. Like they say, one time the sun never set on the British Empire, and now the sun never rises on the British Empire. It's just always miserable. So you think, right, I'm just going to create my own planet. So you can create or annihilate, and then you've had enough of it, you can annihilate it. For Shitva, one can control all the material elements. 7, Prakamya, one can achieve any desire. Srila Prabhupada says that sometimes these yogis, they come down from the Himalayas after having a little bit of mystic power, and they come down and they cheat the people. They can do like a Jedi mind trick. You will give me all your money. And they come down, they cheat the people. And then number 8 is Kama Vasayata. They can assume any shape or any form. Just like we see the demons in Krishna's Lila, they could assume any form. Putana, she was a great witch. How many miles long? 8 miles long? Something like that. Anyone know how many miles long Putana was? 8 miles? 12. 12 miles long. But she disguised herself into a beautiful form, and that when she was coming in, they all thought she was the goddess of fortune. They thought, oh, here's Lakshmi Devi, she's coming. But she was a hideous witch, 12 miles long. But she had this mystic power. She could assume any shape or form. So it's described that the 8 personalities, they all appeared, all the 8 yogic siddhis. They all have the name Puri. At the end, so there was Ananta Puri, Sukhananda Puri, Govinda Puri, Raghunath Puri, Krishnananda Puri, Keshava Puri, Damodar Puri, and Raghava Puri. So these are all the different yogic siddhis. They all appeared with Lord Chaitanya. So this is Raghunath Puri. I'm not sure if he's number 4 in the list, so I'm not sure if that means he's Mahima. He's becoming heavier than the heaviest. You'll have to try and find that out for yourself. But actually, we're also yogis. We're bhakti yogis. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam apisavesham madgatananta atmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamomataha. And of all yogis, the one who with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So we're also yogis. We're performing the highest yoga, bhakti yoga. Sometimes devotees, they go and they do these kirtan yoga programs. So one time I got invited to go and do a kirtan yoga program, and we spoke a little bit of philosophy. And then the yoga teacher, she was introducing, we don't usually introduce ourselves as a yogi. Maybe sometimes on the street, sometimes devotees say, I'm a yoga teacher, or, but generally I don't really think of myself as a yogi. So she said, and this is Caitanya, and he's a yogi. And I was like kind of sitting like this, with my back like all hunched over, like totally not in yoga. And you see these people who do yoga, they're all like very like sattvic, they sit with perfect straight back and, they're like very mode of goodness, aren't they? And I was kind of there. She said, he's a yogi. And I immediately thought, oh, God. So I kind of sat up straight like this. I tried to look the part, But actually we are yogis. And then we did a kirtan. And it was amazing, the response. It was about, 10 people. And then one of them, during the kirtan, he just laid down on the floor. Now, sometimes devotees also do that when they're chanting japa, but afterwards we said to I said, okay, would anyone like to share what was their experience of the chanting of the kirtan? And then, one of them just said, yeah, I just went off on a journey. I was like traveling throughout the universe and, you have to encourage them. You can't say, what are you talking about? My God, you're in Maya. One time a devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, when I'm chanting, I'm seeing these lights. And Prabhupada said, don't worry, just carry on chanting and eventually it'll go away. So don't worry, just keep chanting. You'll come back to earth soon. Now we're bhakti yogis. And devotees, they also possess all of these mystic powers. Did you know that? Devotees, they possess all 8 mystic powers. There you go. So, and actually there's evidence in the Shastra. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he was known as Siddha Baba. We were just there in Navadvip, one of the islands. And we went to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's his Samadhi Mandir and his Bhajan Kurtiya. And Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, he narrated a pastime. He said, he was known as Siddha Baba, perfect Baba. He was perfect. So one day, a husband and wife, a couple, they came to see him. And they said, we're looking for Siddha Baba. And Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he was very humble. He didn't like people disturbing his bhajan. He said, no Siddha Baba here. No Siddha Baba here. You'll have to try somewhere else. And they were like, but this is the address we've been given, And he said, no Siddha Baba here. No Siddha Baba here. And then he picked up a stick, and like a big stick, and he just started banging it on the floor and started shouting, hey, like this. And then this couple, they became really like afraid. Oh, and we're sorry. And they realized this was Siddha Baba. So they said, oh, Maharaj, we're sorry if we've offended you in any way. And he said, no. I'm not offended by anything if you do. He says there is one goat eating the tulsi at the, Samadhi Mandir of Lokanath Goswami in Vrindavan. And here's Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj in Navadvip. Long before the days of WhatsApp and Facebook and like this. He said, no, there is one goat and I'm chasing it away. He's eating the tulsi. So then these devotees, or this couple, they were like amazed. So they sent a telegram to Vrindavan. Somehow they got in touch with the Goswami who was looking after Lokanath Maharaj's samadhi. And he said, about midday, was there a goat eating the tulsi? And then they got a telegram back 2 days later and they said, there was one goat eating the tulsi. But then all of a sudden the goat became scared and ran away. So just see. How does he know? He had these mystic powers. And Ambarish Maharaj, famous story from the Srimad Bhagavatam. He cursed. Anyways, the devotees know the story, but he'd been fasting for a year, a Kadashi. We find it hard fasting for one day. We just fast from grains. And, Prabhu, I'm weak. I can't do anything today. I'm just going to have to lie in my sleeping bag. It's a Kadashi. I'm too weak. One time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he saw some devotees in the temple room, and they were there and they were just chanting. He said, what's going on, They said, we're too weak, Guru Maharaj. It's a Kadashi. And then he ordered the cooks, go and cook some grains, feed these devotees some grains and send them out preaching. What are you doing? Another time Prabhupada said to there was these sannyasis, they were doing Chaturmasya, ISKCON sannyasis. And they were doing Chaturmasya, they were growing their beard and, they were just doing more and more bhajan. And Prabhupada said, what is this? Sitting around in the temple room, growing beards. He says, we are not so interested in this Vrat Chaturmasya. He said, preaching. This is, get out there and preach. But anyway, Ambarish Maharaj had been fasting for a year. And then it was the day of breaking the fast. We look forward to, they say any fool can fast, but it takes a wise man to break it. It's like, fasting we can do it, but then when it comes to breaking the fast, we pile our plate up like Govardhan Hill. Yes, I've been fasting, Prabhu. I'm just going to respect some prasadam now. Are you going to respect it or are you going to climb it? Looks like a hill. Any fool can fast, but it takes a wise man to break it. But he'd been fasting and he was going to break his fast. And then who should show up? Durvasa Muni. And if anyone knows anything about Durvasa Muni, back to Caitanya Swami, he was describing in Navadvip on this paragraph, he was saying, he's the kind of person that, sometimes you're walking down the street and you just look at someone, you just glance at them and they say, what are you looking at? Are you looking at me? What you want a piece of me? On Sankirtan sometimes there are some people and they're walking out and they want you to look at them and they're kind of like scowling at you and because they know as soon as you look at them, what? Or they just want to say, no, I don't want a book. And sometimes as devotees, Sankirtan, you become empowered actually. You get these mystic cities. And this person wants me to look at them so they can say, I'm not interested. So actually what you do is you backfire it on them. You just ignore them. And so sometimes they walk, and you just know, actually. You can, a Sankirtan devotee, that. You just kind of get some, Krishna tells you. So then you ignore them. So then they kind of hang around. And they're like, and then you turn around and say, what is it? Just to humor them a little bit. What, I'm not interested. And then they go off. So Durvasa Muni, he said, back to Chaitanya, he said, he's the kind of guy like that, you look at him in the wrong way. What? I'll curse you. So and actually 50% of the demons, over 50% of the demons in the Krishna book, do you know how they became demons? Cursed by Durvasa Muni. It's a fact. So therefore, anyway, Durvasa Muni, Maharaj, it was time to break his fast. So he went to consult with the Brahmins. I don't know what to do. It's time to break the fast, but, etiquette, I can't break my fast. I can't have something to eat or drink before my guest. He's a guest. They said, don't worry, just take some water, a little drop of water, because it's the same as breaking the fast, but it's not fat breaking the fast at the same time. It's one of these things. You can just take a little water. So he took a little drop of water, but Durvasa Muni, by his mystic powers, he had the 8 mystic cities. What is this? Ambarish Maharaj has just broken the fast before feeding a guest. I'll show him a lesson. So I think, didn't he take a hair from his head? He plucked a hair from his head. And he said, okay, you become a demon and you annihilate this cheeky rascal Ambarish Maharaj. And this demon, so then Ambarish Maharaj, he just immediately took shelter of Krishna. And he just started praying and chanting. And then the Sudarshan chakra, Krishna sent his Sudarshan chakra, and it came and immediately annihilated this demon. And then it started chasing Durvasa Muni. So you see that picture in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then Sudarshan chakras, and he went everywhere. He went to Lord Brahma, and he said, Lord Brahma, what am I going to do this? And he said, I'm sorry, there's nothing, I can go and see Lord Shiva. he's over here, And so then he went, and Lord Shiva, there's not, I can't go and see Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha. Maybe he can sort it out. So then he was such a powerful Muni, Devasa Muni, he even went to the spiritual world. And Lord Vishnu, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. You offended this devotee. The only way you can become free is if you go and surrender at the lotus feet of Maharaj Ambarish and you beg forgiveness. Only then may you become free. So he was getting singed and burnt. His clothes were like, and like when we're in Vrindavan this year, it's so busy in the Krishna Balaram Mandir now during Kartik that during the time to offer the lamp, there are many ladies, they get their hair caught on fire. Twice we saw that happen. The ladies' hairs were singeing. And it's not a laughing matter, but anyway, just Devasa Muni. Anyway, that's a side point. But anyway, Devasa Muni's been burnt by this Sudarshan chakra. So then he went to Lord Vishnu, and so I went to pray to Ambarish Maharaj, and Ambarish Maharaj said, yeah. He said, I never took any offense. I forgive you. So then, eventually, he was free from the curse. So what is the lesson in this one? Don't offend devotees, because they're very, very dear to Krishna. Even Krishna can't forgive you if you offend a devotee. Only the devotee himself. So we should always be very, very careful not to offend devotees. Always be in the mood of serving the devotees, and always be in the mood of glorifying the devotees. So Maharaj Ambarish, he was a devotee, but he defeated a great mystic yogi who had all the mystic powers. And Maharaj Ambarish, he defeated him. So therefore it's described that a Bhakti yogi is even more powerful. Anyway, time's kind of running out. I just had a couple more things to say. Is it okay if I just carry on? Is that okay? If anyone wants to go out for breakfast, you can go out now. We'll see who's going to go out. Give them an evil look like Devasa Muni. I'll curse you if you go out for your breakfast now. Someone's going to sneak out. No, we'll try and finish timely. Anyway, that's just see. Anyway, I'll go on to that in a minute. So Srila Prabhupada, he also had these mystic powers. Many devotees described how Srila Prabhupada, he had mystic powers. So there's one nice story on the Memories DVD. You can see it. So one of the devotees, he was acting as Srila Prabhupada's bodyguard. And there was two of them acting as Prabhupada's bodyguard. And they had the service that Srila Prabhupada would come out of his room and he would put on some slippers, and they would just stand outside and guard the door. If Srila Prabhupada would put on some slippers, he would walk to the temple room, leave the slippers at the door, he would come in for greet the deities, he would give Srimad Bhagavatam class, then after the class he would leave, put on the slippers, walk back to his room, leave the slippers outside the room, and then go in. So one of the devotees, he said to the other bodyguard, he said, you know what, Prabhu? He said, I've got an idea. Every day Srila Prabhupada puts on these slippers. He said, so I found where I can buy the exact same slippers. He said, so I've got a little trick. He's got this trick. He said, I'm going to replace Srila Prabhupada's slippers with my slippers, and I'm going to let Srila Prabhupada wear them one day, and then I'm going to keep these slippers and put Srila Prabhupada's back, and that way I'll have my very own Maha that Srila Prabhupada's worn, and I can keep these slippers and I can worship them and pray to them. And then, so he did it one day. Srila Prabhupada put on the slippers, he went, and so then this devotee had the slippers. So then this other devotee thought, wow, that's a really good idea. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So he went to the same shop, bought the same slippers, and he put them there. Srila Prabhupada came out, put on the slippers, went to the temple room, gave the class, came back, put on the slippers, and then he walked back to his room. And then Prabhupada just opened the door and walked in, left the slippers on, closed the door. And then this devotee was like, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. And he was outside and he was like, oh, and he was getting nervous. 1 hour's passed, 2 hours passed, 3 hours passed, and and then this Prabhupada's servant came out. And he said, Prabhu, this is a message from Srila Prabhupada. And he said, Srila Prabhupada says, thank you very much for the new slippers. He said, it's very nice. He said, but one thing you should know, it is not nice to play tricks on the spiritual master. So, how did Srila Prabhupada know? Maybe he did know. But anyway, many devotees have this experience that Srila Prabhupada, he had these powers. But Srila Prabhupada, when he was asked, can you perform miracles? Like in India, many gurus, they can, bogey yogis and pseudo gurus, they can produce some ash or a gold watch or something, and therefore they're gods because, produce some ash or something like that. So they asked Srila Prabhupada, what miracles can you do? And Srila Prabhupada pointed at the audience and he said, these are my miracles. All these European and American boys and girls, my devotees, these are my miracles. One time they were meat eaters, sex mongers. Srila Prabhupada sometimes describes like that in the Bhagavatam. Sex mongers, meat eaters, intoxicated. But I have taken these Yavanas and Mlechas and I have turned them into pure devotees of Krishna. He said, this is my miracle. Who else can do that? And isn't it a fact? Yesterday we heard this story about Bhakta Mikey from Wales. He was just reading, he just quit his job. He just got a Bhagavad Gita as it is out from the library. And he just was reading it. He had nowhere to stay. He was homeless. He was going to sleep rough that night. And then 5 minutes into reading the Bhagavad Gita, he thought, but anyway, Krishna will, look after me. And then 5 minutes later, a devotee came along, back to Rome, and said, hey, what's that you're reading? Bhagavad Gita. Hey, come back with me to the temple. And then he joined right there and then. And then he went out and did the whole Christmas marathon, Prabhupada marathon, and he was in the top 20. Isn't that a miracle? He didn't know anything about Krishna. He'd read something in the Veda, and it said about the Bhagavad Gita. So he just got out this Bhagavad Gita. And then he just became a devotee. I was thinking about myself also. Sometimes we'd do a double. I was like at Liverpool University. I was, studying. And then I went to stay with the devotees one night. And it was Saturday night. I was sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag. It was freezing cold in that Liverpool temple. There was some strange man singing on the tape player. That was Srila Prabhupada. The devotees sleep with the stereo on. The lights were on. Devotees don't sleep with the lights out because it's Maya. It's mode of ignorance. So the lights are on. It's freezing. And I'm thinking, I've got to get up. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I can hear everyone out in Liverpool having a good time. I'm thinking, I'm never in bed at 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. And I've got to get up in a few hours and have a cold shower. And it was freezing cold in Liverpool. There was no hot water. It was the middle of the winter. And then I've got to walk up and down and say Hare Krishna to myself. And I was thinking, what happened here? I was a normal person a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, I couldn't quite work out what had happened. But it's a miracle, isn't it? We come into contact with the devotees, with Srila Prabhupada's books. And, I've not been to the manor for a while, and now I see so many devotees who I've not seen before. Isn't it a miracle? Srila Prabhupada's touching the hearts of everyone and making them devotees still now, even though he's not physically present, but he's present in his books. He's present in his teachings. This is Prabhupada's real miracle. But as devotees, actually, we're not interested in trying to attain these mystic powers. I spoke to one of the devotees in Newcastle, Bhakti Ras. I'm going to try and bring it to an end now. Please forgive me for going over a bit. I was speaking to, Nandam Prabhu texted me this verse, and I was thinking, how on earth am I going to say anything about this? And now, as it happens, I've got too much to say about this verse. So I had a few ideas, and I went over to Bhakti Ras Prabhu, and I thought, let me try and ask Bhakti Ras Prabhu, who's a senior devotee, get some ideas. What would you say about this class? And then it was really nice. We had some really nice exchange of Krishna Katha, and it became really sweet. And I was thinking, this is Krishna consciousness. Mat chitad mad katha prana bodhayanta parasparam. The thoughts of my pure devotees always dwell in me. They derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing with me. So I thought, this is Krishna consciousness, just speaking Krishna Katha. It was so nice speaking with Bhakti Ras. So he was saying that one of his family members had said, the devotees do have psychic abilities. And then he was thinking about it. And then he was thinking, actually, the thing is, it's not necessarily that the devotees have these powers all the time, but that Krishna, he can empower. Krishna is Yogeshwar. Right? He's the master of all mystic powers. But actually, Krishna empowers his devotees if it is needed. It's not that a devotee can just, create a planet, or he can just obtain whatever he likes. But the point is, Krishna, as Yogeshwar, he empowers his devotees. He gives them these mystic powers if it is needed. But the devotee is not interested in attaining these mystic powers. In fact, one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, a German godbrother, he said, what is the need to attain these mystic powers? Because modern science has already attained all of them. We can fly, in an aeroplane. We can float on water in a boat. We can obtain whatever we like now. We go on the internet, and people don't shop in the shops nowadays. You just get it online, right? You go to Tesco home delivery, and then they come. That's prapti, obtaining whatever you like. So modern science has already achieved them. So why do we need? We don't need to. In another sense, Srila Prabhupada says all living entities have mystic powers. He said that frogs, they are great yogis. Sakshi Gopal Prabhu tells the story. On a morning walk one day, he said, yes, frogs, they are great yogis. They can live, they can go into samadhi, and they can, for many hundreds and thousands of years. So Sakshi Gopal, he heard that, and then he was thinking, I've never heard of such a thing. But then later on in a science program, they dug up some rock from the Neolithic period or whatever it was, and they cracked it open, and this frog jumped out and hopped off. So then he realized, no, actually it's a fact. Everything Srila Prabhupada said it's a fact. The frog, it was a great yogi. He'd been there for, so many years. Birds can fly, fish can swim. So all living entities in one sense have these mystic powers. And the greatest quality of Krishna is not that he's a mystic yogi, that he's Yogeshwar, but the greatest quality of Krishna is the Bhakti Vatsala. He's indebted to the love of his devotees. Senayo ubayor majam, what is it? Senayo ubayor majay ratam starpaya mechuta, yavadetan niriksheham yadu kaman avastitam. Arjuna says at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between these two armies so that I can see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. So the devotee is ordering Krishna because Krishna becomes purchased by the pure love of the devotee. So Krishna is addressed as a tutor because it's described that he's infallible because he never fails in his affection for the devotees. He's always looking for ways to serve his devotees. And the last point we're going to make now is that the greatest devotee, a quality of a devotee, because devotee possesses all good qualities, tatikshava, karunika, surida savadehina, majata shatrava shanta, sadava sadabhushana, is tolerant, merciful, friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all of his qualities are sublime. These are the qualities of a devotee. But his greatest quality is compassion, mercy, which is manifest in Jivadoya. That therefore, as we said at the beginning, they like to share Krishna consciousness with others. And this is the best way to become dear to Krishna. Krishna says, there is none more dear to me than those who preach my glories. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he said, do not try to see Krishna, but act in such a way that Krishna will be pleased to see you. So the best way to get noticed by Krishna is by this preaching. Krishna says there's none more dear to me. So we're just going to end now. This is the end. Ta-da! We're just going to end on a little story which just describes, it's a quick story, I promise. Vijay Prabhu tells this nice story that during the American presidential election campaign some years ago, the devotees were doing Harinam. And then there was one campaigner, he got so fired up with his Vote Ronald Reagan placards that he jumped into the Harinam and he was waving it about. Vote Ronald Reagan, and the devotees, Hare Krishna. There was a big crowd around the devotees, so this, he was campaigning, vote Ronald Reagan. So the paparazzi, the newspaper, they thought this was great, so they took a photo of it, and it was on front page of the newspaper. And then, of course, I'm not sure if it was Ronald Reagan, but one of the presidents, he got in, let's say it was Ronald Reagan, just for the sake of the story, he got into power, and he saw this newspaper, he said, who is that man who is so enthusiastically campaigning on my behalf? He said, I want you to find him and bring him to me. And I want to have lunch with him at the White House. So, they have their way. They could find this man. They have the CIA in America. They could find him. Okay, they found him. And they said, come. The men in black turn up, He was scared. Oh, what have I done? He said, the President of the United States wants to see you. Oh, he wants to have lunch with you at the White House tomorrow. Oh, right. So he came and he had lunch because he was campaigning so enthusiastically. So Vijay Prabhu, he was telling this story and said, so just see, if we're out there campaigning, vote for Krishna. Take this book, chant Krishna's name, take some prasadam, come to the temple, come to the Namahat. Have you heard about Krishna? Whatever it is, Krishna's up there. In fact, who is that man? Who is that lady? Who are those devotees down at Bhaktivedanta Manor? I want you to fetch them and bring them back to me. I want to have lunch with them tomorrow in Goloka Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Nitai Gaura Premanande.